Hey, this is Chad with Drawn Cornered. It's September 21st, 2021, and this is your news for the day. We have a new announcement from Pfizer and BioNTech about their vaccine and its usage for 5 to 11-year-olds. They said that it's robust findings showing that everything's working appropriate with one-third the dosage of what they use for adults, and kids are getting their antibodies and protected against COVID. Now, this is preliminary. They haven't gone through the FDA. It hasn't been peer reviewed, hasn't been acknowledged, hasn't even been published at this point, but that's our first findings. So it's possible that by Halloween that we have an actual emergency declaration to make the vaccine available for 5 to 11-year-olds, possible mandates to follow after that. But the question becomes a little bit trickier now because of these vaccines being distilled down to younger and younger populations who are less and less vulnerable to COVID, about just how important these are for kids to take. Now, there's been some talk out there about myocarditis and pericarditis, heart inflammation issues with the vaccine. And there's some conflicting reports about exactly where that problem lies. And it turns out that kids who get COVID actually are more susceptible to the potential for heart inflammation than kids who are unvaccinated, who are vaccinated and happen to have an adverse effect to COVID. But unvaccinated kids without getting COVID are the least likely to have heart inflammation issues. So you're sort of raising your risk of that heart inflammation with the vaccine. But if you get COVID, it's even further above that. So this is not a cut and dry. This is not an obvious answer about whether or not to get vaccinated or not, which I think it is for adults, and especially as that age escalates above 40, above 50, 60, 70. That should be almost a guaranteed vaccine for you. Now, I'm not a fan of mandates on that front, but I do think it is a good idea as an adult. It becomes less and less of a good idea, or at least an obviously good idea for kids. So we'll see how that plays out. The other element that I think is really interesting is that we mentioned it yesterday really briefly about the immigration crisis that's going on the southern border. There's 14,000 Haitians and others that are collected at Del Rio in Texas. This all happened essentially over the weekend. It blew up from 2,000 to 14,000. There's like a little tent city down there. Extraordinarily high temperatures, kids, women, children, adult males passing back and forth over the Rio Grande to get supplies to come back to this place, seemingly thinking that they're going to be able to stay. Now, one of the big issues with this is, one, it's highlighting issues in Joe Biden's immigration policy, but also a way that they were looking to get this handled was being pushed into this $3.5 trillion overall spending package that they were going to push through on reconciliation. But the Senate parliamentarian, who's a kind of a wonkish official in there that just talks about Senate rules and what they can and cannot do, has dismissed the immigration aspect of it and said that this does not apply. This should not be in this bill. It's not what reconciliation is meant for, so it should not be there. Now, it's purely a suggestion or a recommendation. It is not grounded in concrete, so the Senate can go against it, but that would be wildly unprecedented. It would be a major strike against this bill to do it against the processes that have been put in place by the Senate. So it would look really bad to go that route. But it may be the only way to get that included, and it's much needed if they're going to be able to handle the immigration crisis at the southern border, if what they want to do is just get everybody in. The alternative is to deport everybody, to get much stronger and harder on immigration, sort of the way that Trump was and sort of the way they campaigned against. But we already had the secretary come forward, Mayorkas, and have a lot more of that hard language saying, do not come, you will not be allowed to stay. This is not a good trip for you to make, and very, very different from what he was saying back in January and February. It was just don't come right now. And that's all shifted significantly. The problem is that the illegal immigrants don't seem to be taking his word for it and continue to come, knowing full well that there's probably going to be a package in the works at some point for amnesty for these folks that are here, or maybe they'll just be let in the country and, at bare minimum, even if they pay attention to their court dates, can spend a couple of years in America rather than going home. deportations back to their countries are happening or not happening. We'll see how that happens. But the influx is becoming so large that it can't be ignored any longer, and we'll see how that happens. That's your news for the day. This is Chad with Drawn and Cornered again. If you like this sort of thing, a little bite-sized portions of news, the things you need to know, and a little bit of analysis, definitely subscribe to the channel down below. If you have any questions, comments, want to tell me I'm crazy, also leave a comment down below. Hit that bell so you get notifications every time we upload a new video, which is 5 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I will see you tomorrow.